Hi, what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching Sit Down. Remy Ma is hanging out with us. My true crime story coming to VH1. Remy, really nice to meet you. How are you?
Nice to meet you. So I'm good. I'm good.
So you've had a lot of cool chapters of your career. You get the opportunity to host this new true crime series on VH1. A lot going on here, right? I mean, it's ordinary people, scandalous crimes. There's redemptive parts of the story. What was most interesting to you in terms of jumping into this project?
The most interesting, I don't know. It's a lot of parts that was interesting. The actual crime itself, what made them do it. Some of them were really, really young, so their ages was like mind blowing. Some of the schemes and scams that they were coming up with were totally mastermind, like borderline genius. But also the redemption part at the end where you see everything they've been through and where they're at now and how they're in a better place and how they were able to take this hardship and this obstacle that pretty much could have been the end all and say all, like would ruin most people, and turned it into something beautiful where a lot of them have great families now. They have nonprofits, they have their own businesses and organizations, and this one part of their life that we're focusing on mainly for the true crime part is a part of their past.
I think society also puts people in boxes, right? You do one thing and that's how we talk about you for the rest of your life. But that's not the truth. We all grow, we all go through different chapters. So, what does it mean to you that people will be able to watch this and realize, oh, okay, I could think about people in my life differently, or I can see these people a little bit differently here?
So I'm technically, literally still going through that. Like, with people take one part of your life that they think they know about you, because most of the time they don't even have the facts or the details right, and they literally judge you by it for the rest of your life. Especially if you're a public figure, or in these cases, they're not celebrities, but their cases were made really public, highly publicized, made headlines. So what makes this show dope and so different from all the other crime shows is that this is first person. You have the person who was involved in everything telling you themselves. Of course, yeah, we go and we talk to some of the agents or officers involved, some of their family members that were close to them that may have seen it spiraling or seen it when it was building up, whatever the case may be. And we have them involved, but very rarely do we get the perspective from the person that it happened to. We hear from the cop that brought them down, or we hear from the department that was investigating them, or we hear from sometimes the victim, they stole my identity. And it's like you never hear the person where they're explaining how for weeks them and their kid sister hadn't eaten food and they were a minor and couldn't get a job and had no way of getting money, and like came up with this plan to figure out how they could feed their family when that shouldn't even been their responsibility. So I don't even feel like you have to be someone that's been to prison or had any type of situation like these people to empathize with them. Like any person with half a heart and a brain to be like, okay, I wouldn't do that, or that's not for me, or that wasn't the right thing, but I could see how this came to be.
Empathy is the magic word. A lot of people have it. There are a lot of people that don't have it. I think it reveals itself, whether it's your own story, other people's stories. You really find that out pretty quickly. So, you mentioned a couple different things that were interesting to you. What was most surprising? Was it how young some of these people were? The ability to pull things off? What just blew your mind the most here?
I think it was how young, like, and which it wasn't even that it blew my mind, because like as most people know, I've been in the system before, and a lot of people, it happens when they're young because you start off in the red. Your family is poor, you live in a poor neighborhood, you come from poverty, and you're just trying to figure out the fastest way that I can make some money so that I'll be okay, so that I can have a roof over my head, so that I have clothes on my back, so that I can eat, or whatever the case may be. Everybody had their different reasons, but it's just really shocking when you see how young these people are. And I want to say mostly how smart they were. They were really intelligent. It wasn't like they were just pulling off like minor things, like the way they were manipulating the system and numbers and credit cards and banks and loans. Just you'd be like, wow. And a lot of them, these stories, like when you really look at it, they're things that people who are allowed to do it, like they do it legally. Like we had one girl, and she was getting loans for properties that were she paid $1 million for, but they were appraising for 2 million, 3 million. So she would get the loan, get that money, flip it, spend about 200,000, put the rest of the money in her pocket, and then buy another property. Now this property cost is 4 million, but the banks were approving it. This is right before the big crash. And everyone had to know what was going on, but she's the only one that ultimately went to prison for it. Like no one from the bank that was approving these loans, no one that was appraising them for way higher than they were actually worth was held accountable. And it just shows you how certain people get looked at and get penalized for things that others don't.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, some people are doing this for decades, never get caught. Some people, wrong
Mm.
place, wrong time, right? Just in the way you look
Some
or who
people
you're
are part
around.
of the stock exchange. Some people work in a bank. Some
Yeah.
people have billions of dollars. So it's not considered a crime for them. But it was just really interesting to like see first person, like how they felt about it, moving through from the first seed that planted in their mind. It was like, you know what, I'm gonna try this, up until their trial, or up until when they were in prison, up until now when they're home. But also, I want to say that we talk about it in the show. I narrate it, and it can be funny at sometimes because I'm like, oh my God, girl, do not go in there. They waiting in there for you. Don't go back. Like, so I'm doing that. But I also have points where, I'm giving real statistics and real numbers about what would make this situation be, or what um people probably don't even realize how. I was just telling somebody, there was one story where they give me information to read and to go over, and I was reading it, and it was saying how demographics and statistics could literally pinpoint the likelihood of you succeeding and just making it out based down to the block that your house was on growing up, not just your neighborhood, not the school you went to. Like, oh, if you lived on block A, and it crossed with street B, you're probably not going to be anything in life, and neither are your children or your children's children. And it's just like, wow. Like when you realize that these numbers exist and the powers that be have access to these numbers, it makes you wonder, like, okay, this is definitely set up for certain people to succeed and for others not to.
It's really crazy when you put it in that context. I mean, it's wild that you can go right down to the block, right? Because so many people are just written off before their lives even get started, right? And then you have a situation for you, for example, right? You've been able to build out a career over multiple decades. And I'm sure there was a time where people were like, nah, Remy, you can't do music. What are you talking about? So, what does it mean to you that you've overcome those challenges and built out this great career for yourself?
Please, I've overcome so many challenges, like just based on, I'm pretty sure if they looked up the block that I lived on, like I remember, I swear, I'll never forget it. I was about 12 years old, and my house had got raided. It was like a big raid in New York City. It was all over the papers. My house got raided because my parents were selling drugs, and they had my parents locked up, and they had me and my siblings in like a little area, and they were calling relatives to come get us. So like we wouldn't go into the system. If you had a relative that was nearby that could come get you, that's what they were doing. And I remember the police officer saying like, "Hey, whatever," like, "Hey, Joe, look at this. Look where the grandmother lives, Castle Hill Projects in the Bronx." So it was like a joke, like, and they were like all laughing like that. We took you from one place where you and your parents lived, and we just raided your house and locked them up and pulled you out of there, and we're gonna call a relative to come get you, and they live somewhere that's even worse. So just off of that never left my mind. Like I remember it clear as day. Like, and I was a kid. I wasn't even a teenager yet. So that tells me in itself that I wasn't supposed to be anything. And then I make it, but I'm still affiliated with people that didn't make it. And I go away, I'm in prison, and then the statistics for people that go to prison, their likelihood to succeed in life, especially for as long as I was away, like forget about it. So to be here talking to you, to live in the home that I live in, to be able to send my daughter to daycare and school and take care of my family, and just all of the things that I'm able to do is nowhere near on this. Like I'm probably like the 0.001% that happens to. So that was something about this show that made me want to be a part of it, because all of them end with stories of redemption, where these people who were written off, who the tablets, the blogs and the media and all the headlines said that, they're nothing, they're garbage, throw them away, forget about them. And now not only are they successful, like they're doing things to help other people that may or may not, end up in their same situation. But it's just great to see it. People never really talk about that part of the story, the redemption part. We hear about and then they went to jail for life and we never seen them ever again. That's how most of the true crime episodes end.
Well, your story is incredibly inspiring, and this will be too. And I just want to talk a little bit about your music for a second, because listen, you've been creating jams for a long time. Who get some stories about you, Fat Joe, the Terror Squad back in the day doing your thing?
Oh gosh. Joe was like, I now he's so different now. Like when we talk about stories from then, we realize how young we both were. Like I always looked at him like he's way older than me and this, but when I think about it, when I met Joe, he was probably like 28, 29, which it's not really that old or mature, but when you're 17 and someone's 28, you're like, oh my God, you're practically getting, your social security check any day now. That's how it seemed to me. But as we get older now, we both have children and he's my daughter's godfather. And him and my husband are like best friends to the point that they like gang up on me. It's disgusting. Um, we have some great memories. We've managed to put out some really big records that pretty much solidified my future. I tell people all the time, like, if I never wanted to work again, I think I could probably live off of my royalty checks of Lean Back and All the Way Up Alone. Like I really think I'd be okay. But we just put out a new record. It's called Back Outside. I think I checked the other day, it was like number 5 in the top downloads. Um, and I have new music finally coming out, my solo project. And also the first song that I'm releasing, it's off of my solo project, but it's gonna be on the soundtrack for a movie that I'm starring in. So it's my first starring role in a movie. The pandemic, I've been pretty busy. I did 3 movies and they all either coming out this year or a combination of this year and the top of next year. So that's pretty dope. So I've been really, really busy. And then of course the true crime that is like so fun. It's great when you get to work and do things that's fun.
No doubt. Before I let you go, what can we expect from Remy Ma, the actor? How is she different from Remy Ma, the musician, or Remy Ma, the host of True
Um,
Crime Story?
it's so crazy because one movie I'm in, it's like a thriller horror movie. It's called 645. And it's like the horror version of Groundhog's Day. At 6:45, he keeps reliving the same thing. But that's like a thriller horror. The other movie, it's called The Perfect Find, and that one's like a love story. And that's I'm more me. I'm me in that movie. The other movie, I'm not me. I'm playing like the best friend of the lead actor. And then in the third movie, it's a biopic and it's based on the life of this woman. Her name is Deronda Hood, but they call her Big 50. And she was like this big time everything. Like she was like a madam, sold drugs, a distributor. Like she did a little bit of everything. And she's from Detroit, and I play her. So that was like pretty cool. And that's the one that I star in. I'm the one I'm really, really excited about. I haven't seen it yet. They keep trying to like tell me like it's. I'm like I don't want to see anything until it comes out. I just want to wait. I want to be shocked with everybody else. So I try to do roles that I like to do stuff that's different for me. It makes it more fun.
No doubt about it. Well, super excited to watch that. Remy, really nice to meet you. Thanks for the time, and we'll be watching on
Thank
VH1, all right?
you. I appreciate it. VH1, August 2nd, Monday, 10 p.m.